Are you an awkward fangirl or fanboy? I'm an awkward fangirl. Author events and book signings can be super intimidating to me. When an author's tour is announced online, I just freak out and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, they're coming near me, no one ever comes here, I'm going to that event, I'm gonna be there and it's gonna be awesome. And then I get there and it's like my heart is pounding, I'm so excited, get up through that signing line and it just, my brain goes blank. I have no idea what to say. I just stumble through it and leave the event feeling like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't say anything that totally embarrassed myself. If you go through anything similar, then hopefully this video will help you know what to expect from your first book signing. Or even if you've already been to one but it's been a while, I wanted to kind of throw out tips, although I hesitate to call them tips because I am no pro. I've only been to 2 book signings ever and I was awkward at both of them. But before I went to both, I was on Google looking up how do book signings work? Do I have to buy the book to even enter the store? Things like that, and surprisingly, there's not a lot of information out there. A lot of people vlog their experiences at book signings and author events, but they don't actually show the little details that kind of caused me some anxiety, and I kind of just thought if there's not a lot of information out there like this, why don't I make it myself? And hopefully more people than just me wonder these kind of things and might find this helpful. So I did come up with a few tips of things that I have found to kind of be a general rule or things that have just helped me. Now every book signing is going to operate differently, and these tips may not apply to big book festivals like Y'all Fest, Y'all West, BookCon, BEA. I've never been to one of those, so I don't know how tips like this are going to translate into huge events. So my first tip is, if you're going to a book signing that's hosted by a bookstore, I think it's pretty common courtesy to buy the book from that store. This isn't always a hard and fast rule. Every single bookstore is going to differ. The first event I went to didn't have a rule about you have to purchase the book there, but the other event I've gone to, they were checking that you had actually bought it from them. Now if you don't know why that's kind of an etiquette thing, the reason is I've worked in a bookstore before. Whenever there were signings, we had to stock a lot of those books so that we didn't run out, which means we paid more money for those shipments from the publishers. We also had to spend our own office supplies on printing up flyers, and our corporate offices had to spend their time and money doing ads on the website or on the radio or wherever ads were being run. So it cost the bookstore a little bit of money to actually host an event. So when customers come to the event and they buy that book there, there's going to be a sudden spike in sales for that publisher, and the publisher is going to get a report of that and say, wow, you know, that day that we sent our author to that store, their sales did really good, which is money in our pockets, so we're going to keep sending our authors back to that store. Even if you're in a tiny small town, that's going to be a great reference for the publisher to know that they should keep sending their authors there, so you have a better chance in the future of being able to go to more author events. So if you're about to go to your first book signing and you don't know if you need to expect to buy the book there, which this is a concern to me because I don't know if I can pre-order the book or if I need to wait and buy it at the store in person. I never wanted to end up with double copies where I bought my copy pre-ordered on Amazon and then get to the signing and find out I've got to buy another one here just to get in the signing line. It will be obvious if that is a rule or not. They will make it known at the event before they let people into the signing line. If they are really going to be a stickler for that rule, they will let you know. The multi-author event I went to, the rules were kind of loose and they weren't checking if you had actually bought the book, but I did purchase a book for one of the 4 authors, and that made me feel more assured that, like, I was supporting the author, the publisher, that bookstore. Now, if you're like me, you don't have an unlimited book budget. Being the cheapskate that I am, even though I hate paying full price, especially for every book, once in a while, and especially for the opportunity to not only meet, but actually get a few minutes to talk to some of your favorite authors and have personalized stuff to take home, to me it was definitely worth that little extra cost of the book. My second tip is it's a good idea not to have more than 3 books with you for an author to sign. Of course you want to bring what you have from home to the event and have that signed. Even if you're buying their newest book at the bookstore, usually it's okay if you bring in outside books. So if you're buying a book at the store, that would mean you could bring 2 with you from home. Not every event is going to have a limit, but when they do, it seems like most often I see the number 3. And the reason for cutoffs when stores do have a limit like that is to just keep the line moving as quickly as possible. The first event I went to, that was their rule on their website, but nobody was checking that stuff, and people definitely brought in like 15 books to have signed. But the second event I went to, they were checking. There was somebody from the publisher standing in line checking how many books people were holding and saying, hey, I'm sorry, but you can only bring 3 things up. Most of the time, if you have more than 3 items to sign, you can wait until the very end of the event, meaning don't get in line at first, wait until everyone else has gone through, and then you can go up with your more than 3 items and have those signed. And what that means though is that you risk running out of time and the author having to leave before you get to meet them. Again, if they're really enforcing that rule, they will let you know. Tip number 3 is call ahead. Call the bookstore ahead of time, because for tips 1 and 2, every bookstore may not have the same rules in terms of how many books you can bring in or if you have to buy the book there. The only and the most reliable way to actually find out what the rules are going to be is somebody that works at the store, because they know how they are used to doing events. And another big question you can ask them is the event free to come to? Because some events do require that you actually buy a ticket just to get in, just for admittance into the store. And I've heard that some events actually do reserved seating, because when you go to an event, chances are there's not going to be enough chairs for the number of people that show up. But calling ahead of time, the bookstore will be able to tell you about how many seats they expect to have, how many people they expect will be showing up, how long they expect the event to last, and if there's any kind of seat reservation. I know some bookstores you just have to call in and just say, hey, I'm coming to the event, can I reserve a seat? And they just take your name and it's free, where other stores do ticketed seats. That usually will be listed on the website. Again, it's going to tell you if it's free to attend or if you have to buy a ticket to get in. But if you have any questions, and I know sometimes websites can be outdated, the best thing to do is to call the bookstore and talk to someone at the bookstore. It's better than talking to a friend or someone you know that's been to an event there at that store before, because their rules can vary from event to event. Tip number 4, when you finally get up there and you get to have a few minutes to talk to the author, start out by actually introducing yourself. Let them know how they might know you. If you've ever tweeted with them on Twitter, let them know, hey, I'm that person who tweeted with you about this. Or if you tweet a lot, you could say, hey, this is my username, because they may not always associate username with your face. Even if you've never interacted with them online before, if you draw fan art, or if you bake cupcakes that are book themed, or you design t-shirts, or you just have a really funny story or a touching story about how their books have impacted your life, it kind of builds a connection and lets them know that, hey, this isn't just a stranger that wandered in off the street. I think it kind of puts the conversation between both of you a little bit more at ease. It definitely breaks the ice. Tip number 5 is don't be afraid to fangirl or fanboy. I have had the thought for both events I went to that I don't want to be that person that gets up there and just goes, OMG, I love your book so much, because everybody says that, right? I'm sure every author has heard that a million times, but once I left, I really wish I had just expressed how much I really did love their work, because what if they think I didn't have a strong attachment and was just there to collect a signature or a picture or whatever. And you know, I really did wish in hindsight that I had said something more along the lines of a traditional, oh my gosh, I love your books, I love this character, So don't be afraid to say something that might seem totally generic to you, but it still is going to be appreciated no matter how many times they hear it. Going along with fangirling and just having an idea of what you want to say to an author once you do get up there, what's helped me both times is don't wait until you get to the event to learn the inspiration behind whatever book is being promoted. Look it up online ahead of time. Chances are the author has an interview somewhere that they've done talking about what inspired them to write this story and what some of their influences were. And you might find out some really interesting facts about the author. Like, you might find out that an author likes to knit or crochet, or they like to paint. A lot of authors actually tweet about their hobbies, so when you go up there and meet them, you might be able to say like, oh, I saw this thing you knitted on Twitter and it was so cool. Or you might be able to say, I read this blog about how you were inspired to write this story and that it was inspired from painting, and I didn't know you were a painter. I've done that before, where I've gone up to an author and told them, oh, I read this about your inspiration and I found out that you liked art and I think that's cool. I like to draw too. Is there anywhere that I can see your art, because I'd be really interested in looking at it? And I feel like that went over pretty well. It was a little bit different than the typical when's the next book coming out? But if there's anything you know about the author that you've read about online, as long as it's easy to find and is, I think it's fair game, bring it up, and it just kind of shows a little bit more interest in them, and it can create some really great conversations that you might not be expecting to get with an author. As far as do I know what I want to say when I go up there, I am that awkward personality type that I do kind of pre-rehearse things. That's just how I am, but it doesn't even matter because they always go out of my head at the last minute anyway, and I end up totally stumbling and being totally awkward. I don't care how long I rehearsed anything, it's not going to go off the way I wanted it to, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, if there's something you know like a year in advance, I've always wanted to ask this author this question, definitely ask them that if you get a chance. But if you go to an event totally unprepared, you have no clue what to ask, chances are during the discussion portion of the event, they're going to say something that kind of sparks an idea in your mind that maybe there is a question you would like to ask, or you might hear an audience member during a Q&A session ask something that you would like to be expanded on. This event I went to last week, I knew a question I wanted to ask her, and I got picked for the audience Q&A, asked her my question, she really liked it, but then when I got up there, I kind of felt like, oh, well, there's all my book material, and we ended up talking about my nail polish, of all things. I mean, it's a gorgeous color, I love it, but I did kind of feel like maybe I should have saved that question until I got up there and could have actually had a little bit more substance about her books to talk to her with when it was like actual one-on-one conversation time. So that might be something to keep in mind if you are worried about what to say. Maybe don't blow your one question during the audience section if you only have one question. And my sixth and final tip in this video is keep it short. I know it's probably your one opportunity to ever meet one of your favorite authors, but it is a little bit aggravating to be that person stuck in line behind someone that did bring 10 books for that author to sign, and they want to just keep talking and talking, and they take 20 minutes in line, because if everybody took 20 minutes in the line, the author would go home before half of the people even got to meet him or her. No matter what you do or say while you're up there, it's going to feel like it went by in a flash to you, and hopefully there will be some other event that you can go to in the future that you can have more time to catch up on. A lot of times you can also ask a question on Twitter if you're feeling like you really left something out. I know I had what felt to me to be a lengthy conversation with one of the authors I met, and I just remember thinking at the end like, I don't mean to take up all of your time, and she was like, no, it's fine. They don't realize and you don't realize how much time is actually passing, because it does happen in a blur. They're probably not going to just cut you off, but just try to be considerate to the rest of the people in line behind you, that people have driven, you know, an hour, 6 hours to be at this event, and it would really stink if the author ran out of time to be there and they had to leave. Those are all the tips I have for today for this video. If you have any other questions, or there may have been something that I haven't covered that you're really curious about, so if there is, let me know what it is down below, and I'll do my best to answer the question if I myself have any experience with it, because keep in mind, I'm a noob myself, but I hope that somebody found this video to be a little bit informative. I definitely think I would have, which is why I made it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Don't forget to be a fangirl.